But I need to tell you that even though Laban tricked Jacob, didn't give him all the information, let me stop right there because I want you to understand this clearly. Before you allow somebody to talk about they are partnering with you in the vision, make sure you understand what they're thinking and how they're thinking. Understand the culture. Are we together? Because what really happens here is Laban goes back and tells Jacob, well, that's not our culture. We don't let the younger daughter marry first. And if I was Jacob, I would have said, you should have told me that in the first place. I would have went and found her a husband so I could get the woman I want. And so you got to understand what, no, we need to talk about this. We don't make decisions on the fly just because we haven't, just because you say you agree with me. I need to know how you thinking before I allow you to participate in my vision. Is that making sense to anybody? I know I'm right. I know I'm right, because it's some people in here right now scarred and bruised and angry because you let the wrong person join to you in your vision, and when they didn't come through like they told you they would come through, now you mad at everybody else. And so Laban tricks Jacob by making him marry Leah first. But I need to tell you, while there was nothing wrong with the vision, what I admire about Jacob is he was willing to do what it took to make the vision come to pass. And so he said, if it costs me 7 more years, so be it, because I know this is what God has for me. Why, can I tell you why there are so many visions on the shelf now, stuck back in the junk drawer of your life? Is because when it didn't happen, when you imagined in your own mind when it would happen, you said there's something wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with it. Just gonna take you a little more time. I'm preaching to myself now. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just gonna cost you a little more. There's nothing wrong with it. You just got to regroup now, save a little bit more money so you can take it to the next level. There's nothing wrong with the vision, dear heart. It's just that you had the wrong people working on the vision. But now God sends you the right people. You can get rid of those who don't really understand and plug the right people in so you can get where God is taking you. Is this helping anybody? It took Jacob longer than he thought, but he was willing to do so. So now what did Jacob have to invest? Brother Johnson, first thing I see is time. 7 years, the Bible says. That jumped out at me. I don't know about you. It cost him some time. I need to help somebody in here. If the vision is from God, it does not happen overnight. God will not give you a vision that you can do for yourself by tomorrow. It will cost you time. And as I just said, every now and then, a little more time than you want to give. Secondly, I recognize that it cost Jacob some energy, because it says, I will serve you. For 7 years I will serve. Laban, I'll serve you. And what Jacob said to Laban is, I will cultivate your land. I will work your land so that at harvest time it will produce what it needs to produce. I will cultivate, work your land, improve and prepare your land so that when it is time for the harvest, your land will produce. But here's what jumped out at me. Maybe while Jacob was cultivating the land, God was cultivating Jacob. Hence the reason for the time. Does anybody remember Jacob's background? Jacob is a hustler. Jacob is a swindler. Jacob will get you if he can. And so now the 7 years of cultivating and improving and preparing the land, while Jacob was working on dirt, God was working on Jacob. And so baby, maybe it's taking a little longer because God is cultivating you, improving you, preparing you, so that when the harvest does come, you'll be ready to produce good fruit. It cost him work. It cost Jacob. He was willing to invest emotion. He was willing to invest his emotions because the record says Jacob loved himself some Rachel. My grandmother would say his eyes wasn't big enough to see Rachel. The brothers would say Jacob looked for Rachel with a flashlight in the daytime. Somebody else said Jacob would go in a room full of beautiful women and ask, did y'all see Rachel? Jacob loved Rachel. The fact that he was willing to invest his emotions lets me know that Jacob was all in. He wasn't holding anything back. And if you really think about it, we could go along with the work, we will spend the time, but if we really believe in the vision, we invest ourselves emotionally. We allow ourselves to become vulnerable enough to be disappointed. And may I suggest to you, sister or brother, that whatever God is doing in your life, if you don't believe in it enough to take the risk of being disappointed, to take the risk of falling on your face, to invest in it emotionally, you may need to reconsider, is this vision from God? Because if it's going to come to pass, you got to be all in. Is that making sense to anybody? Would you do me a favor? Check your neighbor, make sure he or she is not asleep, please. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. It says that Jacob was willing to invest, and it cost him more. Here's what I like, and I'm done. I know this thing was from God. And I bring it to your attention because on the surface, this really doesn't look like vision at all. Because when we think of vision, we think God shows us something in our dreams. When we think of vision, we think God, we have some mystical divine intervention that allows us to see something that perhaps somebody else is looking at the same thing and they can't see. We think of some other conscious experience, but it appears to me that Jacob looked at Rachel and said, that's my wife. He saw her with his natural eyes and recognized, that's my wife. May I suggest to you, sisters and brothers, that the thing that you're looking for may just walk up and introduce himself, herself, itself to you. And while you're waiting for God to put you to sleep to show you the vision may be right in your face. The vision may come through some offhand question, some offhand comment that someone says to you, and your mind clicks and says, I never thought about it that way. The vision may come through some disappointment, some discouragement, because one thing didn't work out, and that's because God is preparing you for the real vision. Here's how I know this thing is from God. Jacob did not have some mystical experience. Jacob looked at that woman and said, that's my wife. I know it's from God because when you keep reading, it says Jacob and Rachel had a son, and his name was Joseph. Now, on the surface, no big deal. Everybody had a son named Joseph. Except this Joseph was special. So special that daddy recognized that he was favored by God. So daddy favored Joseph, which caused some contention in the family, which raised up some haters for Joseph and Jacob. Can I stop right there and remind somebody, baby, that your vision will come with some haters, but don't worry about the haters. Rachel had a son named Joseph that was sold into Egypt. And while he was in Egypt, his vision seemed as if it died on the vine. They died on him. They put him in jail. All manner of things. They forgot about him. All manner of things happened to Jacob's son Joseph, Rachel's son Joseph, that made it look like the vision wouldn't come to pass. You can't stop in Genesis, though. Can I stop right there? Because some of us think the vision stops in the beginning. You do know Genesis means the beginning, and Exodus means deliverance. Sometimes you won't see the vision in the beginning, but it'll certainly come to pass in the deliverance. And so when you get to Exodus chapter 1, the record says that when Israel went down into Egypt, Joseph was there already. That's how I know that what looks like a chance encounter, what doesn't even look like vision, God was working all of that out according to the bigger plan. Here's what I got to tell you, baby. Jacob and Rachel did not get there by accident, but God orchestrated it. God orchestrated it even when Jacob was in his mama's womb wrestling with his brother. God orchestrated it even when Jacob grabbed his brother's heel. God orchestrated it even when Jacob tricked his brother and took advantage of his ignorance. God orchestrated it even when Jacob and his mother Rebekah took advantage of his daddy's moral blindness. God orchestrated it even when Jacob was on the run, had to lay his head on a hard rock so that he can see angels ascending and descending from heaven. God was working that thing out. And I came to tell somebody in the house today, baby, I know you have gone through some things. I know you've done some things that were wrong, some things that of which you are ashamed, but you ought to understand your past was only God working everything together to get you to the point that he could show you the vision. Imagine if Jacob had stayed back on the homestead. Imagine if he'd given up when they ran him off. There would be no Rachel, there would be no Joseph, there would be no Israel, there would be no Jesus, there would be no cross, there'd be no resurrection, there'd be no salvation, there'd be no sanctification, there'd be no deliverance, there'd be no liberation, there'd be no you, there'd be no we, there'd be no we, there'd be no us, there'd be no church. God worked it out. And so I suppose all I'm really trying to tell you today, don't give up on the vision. Invest in your vision, baby. If God has told you that child is going to be a doctor, you make sure he or she is in the right math classes. Don't believe the school. You go to the school. Make sure that child is taking the right science classes. Don't let him or her settle for playing video games all day. You make sure you get them a microscope. Get them a chemistry set. Tell them go dig in the dirt for a little while. Grow some things. Are y'all walking with me in here? If God has told you don't give up on that marriage, on that relationship, you start investing, baby. Stop by the Albertson on your way home and get some flowers. Get that man his favorite steak. Make this thing work. Invest in the vision.